process, and in today's episode, we are going to continue with our push notification services. Obviously, in the last episode, we set up our push notification, authentication, and authorization. In today's episode, we are going to be setting up our Firebase CLI tools and admin SDK. But in order for us to do that, we need to first install a couple of dependencies that we're going to use to install a bunch of packages. Today's episode is going to be predominantly in the CLI or in our terminal. So if you're not very familiar with playing around in the terminal, please just pay attention, follow along, and ask any questions that you have in the comment section. So the first thing we need to do is we need to install something known as Brew. You can think of Brew as Swift Package Manager for macOS applications and softwares. And so it's going to allow us to be able to install something known as Node.js. And Node.js is a JavaScript runtime environment that allows us to be able to build backend application. And with Node.js, we are going to be able to write and deploy our Firebase Cloud Functions logic and deploy them to our Google backend server. And so with that, we are going to jump right into business and do things one by one. So like I said, the first thing we need to do is install Brew. So if you already have Brew installed into your computer, you can skip this section of the tutorial. And here's how you can validate if you have Brew on your computer. You can open up your terminal. I'm going to be using something known as iTerm, which is just a better version of terminal. And if you hit the command and space bar, you can search up terminal. There's the terminal application right here. Click enter, and you could use that to follow along with this tutorial. But I'm using iTerms. So iTerm is just a better version of terminal, and I've already installed it, but you're probably going to need to use the local terminal application on your desktop. And so if you want to validate if you have Brew installed, just type in brew-v, which is the version. And if it says no command, like that command is not found, that means you don't have Brew installed. And here's what we're going to do to install Brew. All we got to do is just say Brew. Actually, we need to jump into Brew's website. I'm sorry. So let's jump into our, you can either use Google or you can use Google Chrome or you could use your Safari. And you can go to brew.sh, right? And you can just Google Brew, and it's going to take you to this home page. And I'm just going to copy this right here. This is the installation step. I'm going to go back to my terminal, just paste that command in there with Command V. Click on enter, and it's going to ask for your password. So you need to enter your password to your desktop. Click on enter and click enter again, and it's going to go right ahead and actually install Brew into our computer. Like I said, Brew, you could think of it as Swift Package Manager for macOS applications and software, and it just allows you to install specifically what you want. And in this case, we're going to use Brew to install Node.js into our computer. So while Brew does its thing, let's just wait for a couple of seconds. It is done. I'm going to go right ahead and clear, and I'm going to say brew-v, hit enter, and it should work now. Brew-v. Maybe I need to jump out of here, jump back in, and now say brew-v. And there we go. So it says Homebrew 4.3.1. So depending on when you're watching this tutorial, that version might be different for you, but that's just the latest version of Homebrew that I'm using. So now with Homebrew installed, again, remember you're going to be using the terminal application. Just make sure you follow those commands. So with Homebrew installed, the next thing we need to go install is actually Node.js. And the way to do that is we're just going to simply go into our terminal and just say brew install Node. That's it. Click enter, and it's going to go right ahead and download the Node.js software into our computer. And so we're going to wait for that to do its thing. And if you're curious on how I have this nice terminal, this is called iTerm. You can just go to, YouTube and just YouTube iTerm or how to make your terminal nicer. This is pretty nice if you're dealing with, if you're writing a lot of stuff in the command line. And let's wait for Node.js to completely install. And when we're done installing Node.js, and I think Node.js is finally installed, and we're going to go ahead and clear our terminal, click enter. So now we have the first two steps of our process done. We've installed Brew and we've installed Node.js. So all we need to go do now is use Node.js to actually install our Firebase CLI tools. And so before we even do that, I would like for us to create another. Directory, another folder inside of our, Firebase, inside of our actual application. So right now, my application is on my desktop and it's called WhatsApp Clone. And right here, I've just dragged it into my terminal, and that is going to go to the specific path. So I'm going to clear this, and I'm just going to say ls. It's going to list all of the folders and files inside of that specific directory, inside of the specific folder. And now I want to create a new folder or a new directory called backend. So I'm just going to go right ahead and say mk directory, and I'm just going to call it backend. Okay, and if we hit ls again, and look at that, I have backend. And if you open that folder now, we have the backend folder right here. This is just the equivalent of right-clicking and creating a new folder. And the command that we use for that is just make directory, and it's called mkdir, and then you call it, you pass in the specific name that you want to call that folder. So with that being created, I would like to cd into my backend. Basically, I want to go into my backend folder. And so now inside of my backend folder, what do I want to do next? Well, I want to go right ahead and actually install my Firebase CLI tools. And in order to do that, I need to jump into Google and just look up Firebase CLI. And if you just Google Firebase CLI, it's going to take you directly to this Firebase documentation page. And this tells you exactly how you need to install the Firebase CLI tools. And you just need to type in npm install-g Firebase tool. npm is essentially a Node package manager. Again, you can think of it as Swift package manager, except for Node.js. And we're going to jump back into our terminal. And I'm just going to paste this command right here. Just npm install-g Firebase tools. And the G parameter here just refers to global. We want to install it globally into our computer. So I'm going to go right ahead and run that bad boy. And let's see what happens. It's going to take a couple of seconds, and you can see it's still loading. So let's wait for it to do its thing. And when that is done, we need to log into our Firebase project and then install our actual Firebase, and then initialize our Firebase function. And look at that. So it looks like everything is done. 70 packages are looking for funding. No, I'm not interested in that. It had 672 packages. Yep. Okay. So we can do ls inside of our backend now. And we can actually jump into our backend. Let's open this folder. Let's jump into the backend file. Actually, this is not even going to exist in the backend because this is the global tools. So now let's actually go ahead and install our Firebase functions because this is why we're here. So I'm just going to go right ahead and say Firebase. And I believe the command is init functions. So this is going to initialize the Firebase cloud functions that we're going to use for push notifications. So then I'm just going to click enter. Remember, I'm in the backend directory right now, right? And I'm just going to click enter. And we're just going to wait for it to do its thing. And this is yelling at us. It says, fail to authenticate. Have you run Firebase login? So that means we're not currently logged in. So all we got to do is just do Firebase login. So this is going to log us in inside of the Firebase CLI. If you click your Firebase login, it's going to wait for you. It's going to say, allow Firebase to collect. I mean, you could put yes or no. It just depends on you. I'm going to say no. Click enter. And it's going to open this new page for you. And I'm just going to click in my specific account. Click continue. Click allow. And now we have successfully logged in into our Firebase CLI. Okay, let's go back to our terminal and let us go right ahead and run Firebase initialize cloud functions again. And as you can see right here, it says successfully logged in at swiftschool@gmail.com, which is exactly the email account that I'm using. So now I'm just going to say Firebase init, and I think what I'm looking for is functions. Firebase init functions. And again, remember, I'm in my backend directory. I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to wait for it to do its thing. And so it's going to say, please select an option. So create an existing project or use an existing project. So you can use the up and down arrow to move this. I want to use an existing project because remember, we already created our Firebase WhatsApp clone project. So I'm going to click use an existing project. And I only have one project in my Firebase right now, so it's even perfect. All I got to do is click enter. And then it's going to start setting up my Firebase functions. And so right now it's binding into that WhatsApp clone that we created at the beginning of this series. And so let's wait for it to do its thing. And it's going to say, what language would we like to write our cloud functions in? Like I said, we're going to be using JavaScript. So I'm just going to click enter. And then it's going to say, do you want to use ESLint to catch probable bug or whatever? And let's see. I'm just going to say no, honestly. And let's see. So do you want to install npm packages now? And I'm going to say yes, because I want it to install all of the dependencies that we're going to need to write our cloud function. So click yes. And now it's going to wait. By yes, I mean just type in Y in your keyboard and click enter. And now we're going to wait for it to do its thing. And now it's doing its thing. It's installing all of the packages. And look at that. Firebase initialization completed. So let's go right ahead and run ls again. Ls is just going to list all of the files inside of our backend. This is the equivalent of manually doing this, like going into this folder and then going into backend and then seeing all of the folders that are there. And as you can see, the ls says we have firebase.json. Look at that. We have firebase.json here. We have the functions folder. Look at that. We have a functions folder here. And that's exactly what we have, boys and girls. So let's go ahead and open VS Code. I'm going to be using VS Code as my choice of editor for, this specific tutorial. So I'm going to drag my entire project in here, guys. Actually, you know what? I'm going to drag the backend directory in here. So I'm going to open my directory, drag in the backend, and I'm going to say, yes, trust author, do whatever you got to do. And so now it's going to open in VS Code. And if you don't have VS Code installed locally on your computer, just go to YouTube and Google how to install VS Code on your MacBook or use YouTube, Google, it doesn't matter. It's pretty easy and straightforward, actually. And so with VS Code set up for me now, as you can see, I'm in my backend directory of my WhatsApp clone. And right now I have index.js. Look at that, guys. That looks beautiful. And I have my package.json.log. I have my package.json. I have my git.ignore files, and I have my Firebase.json, and everything seems to be working as expected. So the next thing I want us to do is to actually just test this to make sure our Firebase functions is working. And let's see, what do we want to do? Let me go back to our to-do list. So we have done Brew, we've installed Node.js, and we've installed our Firebase CLI tools. So let us go ahead and initialize the admin SDK and test it to make sure it's actually working. I'm going to jump right back to VS Code, and if you command and click into this, commented out getting started URL, it's going to actually take you to the, documentation, the Firebase documentation on how to get started with deploying cloud functions. You could just Google, Firebase cloud functions getting started, click on the first link, and I'm using the first gen, not the second gen. So let's see. So then I'm going to scroll all the way down here, and this is also going to tell you everything we just did: Firebase login, Firebase initialize cloud functions, and all that cool stuff, yada, yada, yada. So the next thing we want to really just do is this. We want to initialize our admin SDK. So I'm going to go right ahead and copy this code because we need it. So I'm going to go back to my VS Code, and I'm going to paste it right up here. Let's see, I'm going to paste it right up here. And this is essentially, bringing in our, let's see, what do we need to do first? We need to import. What do we need to do? Do we need to import anything first? No, we just declare our cloud functions. We're already importing it right here. So this is how we import stuff in Node.js or just JavaScript in general. And so right here, we're importing our cloud function. We're importing our admin SDK right here, and we're initializing our admin SDK app. And that's what this is doing. So with that done, let's go right ahead and save, and just click on Command and S to save our file. And so the next thing I want us to do is to actually test and deploy a cloud function to make sure that everything we just did is working. So I'm going to uncomment this hello world function, and this is just an HTTP request. I would like to fire this and make sure it is actually working. So I'm going to open my VS Code terminal. And the way I just did that was just click one of these bad boys down here and just go to the terminal tab and right here. And it's asking me if I would like to, not right now. And I'm going to go ahead and clear. And again, this is also a terminal in VS Code, which is pretty dope. Let me zoom out a little bit. Sorry about that. So what do we want to do next? Like I said, I would like for me to deploy this hello world function. But before we do that, we honestly need to jump into our Firebase Cloud Function console and make sure everything is set up. So let's go back to our Firebase console. And right here, I'm inside of my Firebase console, and I've gone to the functions tab. If your function is not selected right now, if you don't have functions right here, what you need to do is look for it either in the build, right, in the build section, and just click on functions. And so as you can see, before we can actually run cloud functions, we need to upgrade our project. And we need to update it to the pay-as-you-go plan. Without that, we're really not going to be able to deploy cloud functions, which is something we need for push notification. However, you don't have to worry about this because they're very generous with their, their free tier. So even if you click on the pay-as-you-go, you're not really going to be charged anything. If they're charging you anything, it's probably going to be like less than 5 cents. So let's go ahead and hit that continue button. And it's going to ask us to probably put in our payments information and all that cool stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and say United States, yada, yada, yada. Click on agree and continue. If you already have pay as you go, you don't have to worry about this. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit confirm. And let's see what it's saying. So it's going to ask us for business name. Let's just say Swift School. And we need to add in our credit card information and all that cool stuff. So I'm going to go right ahead and add that in. Like off camera, and I'm going to click on the confirm purchase button, and I'm going to come back and we're going to continue with this. So make sure you enter your credit card information and your address and all that cool stuff. And when you're done, click on the purchase button, confirm purchase, and it's going to set up our billing. Again, we need to set up the pay-as-you-go plan for us to be able to deploy cloud functions. And so with that done, I'm just going to click on this purchase button right here. And let's see, we are now on the pay-as-you-go plan, which is awesome. So let's go right ahead and dismiss this, and let's go right ahead and click on get started. And we already did this. We've already installed our cloud function. We've already did the initialization. We need to click on Firebase deploy. Cloud function. We're going to do that later. I'm going to click on finish, and our Firebase Cloud Function console is set up. So now let's go ahead and deploy our first function. So we're going to jump back to VS Code for us to do that. And now inside of our VS Code, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And the next thing we need to do is say Firebase deploy, I think -- only functions. Or what's the Firebase Cloud Function? What is it again? I think I'm just going to command an F, deploy. What is the command line? Oh yeah, right here. Firebase deploy -- only function. So I'm going to go right ahead and copy that bad boy, jump back to my VS Code, and I am going to type that into my VS Code terminal. And I'm just going to go right ahead and deploy. And so this is going to deploy hello world to our Firebase server. Go right ahead and hit that bad boy, hit enter. It's saying purchase module is deprecated. Okay, let's see. I mean, there's nothing else we're doing. We're just going to wait for this to do its thing. It takes a couple of minutes, or I don't know, I think a couple of seconds at the very least when you're deploying your first cloud functions. And so this is going to give us back a URL when it's done. And when we go to that URL, it should say something like hello from Firebase. And if that is working, that means our admin SDK setup was successful. So let's wait for this. It's still doing its thing. It's going to take a couple of seconds. And come on. Yep. So right here, you can see right here, it says it is deploying hello world to da. Okay, good. That's awesome. Come on. Takes a couple of seconds. Come on. This is sort of the annoying bit of Firebase CLI. Anyways, I'm going to wait for this to get done, and I'm going to come back to you guys when it's actually done deploying. Okay, we are back, boys and girls, and as you can see, it has successfully deployed. It says deploy complete, and we can go to, where is the URL? It should give us a URL. We can go to the overview, and it should give us a URL for the specific position or place that it deployed. Oh, right here. So function, URL, hello world. Let's just go right ahead, and you can command. If you can hold on command and just, click on that link and open it, and it's going to take you to that link. And look at that right here. We have hello from Firebase. Let me see if I can zoom that in. And that's exactly what we want. And we can change it really quickly just to show you it is what it is. I'm just going to change this to Swift School. Please like and subscribe. Hit that save button. Let's go right ahead and deploy it again. We're just going to say Firebase deploy -- only functions and go ahead and hit that enter. Wait for it to do its thing. And the way I was able to pull up the previous command that I used is just by clicking on the arrow, the up arrow. Just click on up on your keyboard. It would present you the previous command that you recently ran in the CLI. So once you do that, click on enter and it should be able to deploy this. So I just wanted to show it to you guys again that this is exactly what's going on. That means we have successfully installed our admin SDK, our Firebase Cloud Functions, and in the next episode, guys, we are actually going to set up our Firebase Cloud Function triggers, which is going to allow us to listen to events inside of our real-time database and use those events to send push notifications. So you can imagine when a user sends a message to another user, that is an event, and we can listen to that and then use that to send push notification to the person they're chatting with. And for example, also when a user react to another user's message, we can also listen to that event and use that to send a push notification. So it's pretty much that straightforward. And this is still taking long again. I'm not really sure why it's acting like this. Maybe my internet connection is a little bit slow, but sometimes it takes forever just to like deploy and redeploy your Cloud Functions. And like, look at that, that was successful. Again, we can look for the project or the function URL right here. It says function URL, and I'm just going to command and click into that. Open it again, and look at that. That says Swift School, please like and subscribe. And that's exactly what we wanted. One thing I want us to do really quickly, though, is we need to go delete this image. And I think it says it right here, error, cleaning up our build image. And let's go right ahead and command and click into that. That's going to take us to our GCP console. And let's go ahead and delete that image because it's going to cost us, I think it says a small amount right here. It says, or you can delete them manually. If you don't delete them, it's going to, incur a small monthly bill. But let's just go right ahead. And the way I'm just going to do this is just click on this GCF artifacts. And I'm going to go up here. And where is this? I'm going to go up here and click on delete. And yes, delete. And let's see, everything is good. And our Hello World program is still running. We can click refresh. It's still running. And that's awesome. And also, let's go to our Firebase console. And you see what I mean. So go back to your Firebase console. Click on this functions tab right here, or this functions option. Click on refresh. And you see the Hello World program that we just deployed. Look at that, Hello World, US Central Time. You can click on it and you can see what is going on. And also you can check out the logs and stuff. So that's it for this episode, guys. Like I said, in the next episode, let's actually set up the event triggers that is going to allow us to be able to send push notification. So hopefully you guys are having fun and you're learning a lot from this. Please like and subscribe as always. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.